Hey, health junkies! It's time for The Health Fix. Join your host, Dr. Janine Krause, as she gives you a dose of what you need to know and do right now to take control of your health from the inside out, to rebel against aging, look damn good, fight stress, and laugh every day.
Hello there, health junkies. Welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause, and today I'm going to talk about what your doctor doesn't tell you about fatigue, but should. So have you ever had anyone say to you, gosh, you look tired? Or like, you look like crap? What's your response? Do you brush it off, or do you go and think, man, do I look that bad? I better go check in the mirror. What's your first way to deal with that? I usually think about, okay, what kind of cream should I put on my face? What kind of makeup can I put on to get me looking a little bit better? But the reality is that we should actually be thinking about what's going on inside, not outside, and really focusing on what's happening inside our bodies to cause us to look so fatigued. I have to be honest, I'm shocked by how many patients come into my office complaining of fatigue. The other day, I had a 15-year-old who is extremely fatigued, not getting her work done at school, and just comes home from school and is wiped out. That is not normal. Something is going on. So I have to ask myself, why are so many people fatigued, and why do doctors not say more about it when you go in for a visit? It's always on that questionnaire. But if you do bring it up, they kind of go, oh, yeah, that's normal. You're busy. You have a family, blah, blah, blah. But waking up tired after 8 hours of sleep is not normal. Energy crashes mid-morning, after lunch, mid-afternoon, and when you get home from work are not normal. Not having enough energy to get off the couch each night after work is totally not normal. You should not be coming home from work and falling asleep on the couch right after work. A lot of people say, well, my job's pretty physical, or my job's really mental. I have a lot of things going on. Yeah, but there's something else going on. So let's talk about 6 fatigue myths that I came up with to chat with you about today. The first one is that fatigue is normal. You're just working hard. And it's just kind of what I alluded to a couple minutes ago, but it's a warning sign that something's not right. And especially when we're looking at folks that are in their teens, 20s, all the way up to your 60s or 70s, you should not be extremely fatigued. By the time you start to get into your 80s, we're looking at other health issues that are going to be, of course, causing fatigue. And yeah, you don't have the stamina that you did when you were 20. So there's kind of a look at, okay, you're going to get more fatigued as you age, but my whole goal is to keep you as energetic as possible well into your hundreds. So all that being said, I guess I'm trying to say, age, as you get older, you shouldn't be fatigued. You should have plenty of energy. So let's talk about this fatigue is normal concept and that you're just working hard. A lot of us will push through fatigue. And even when we're sick, so we're coming down with the cold, we know we're coming down with the cold and we still push through it. Well, guess what happens? We're sick longer. It's the same kind of concept with the body. If you are chronically tired and you're missing out on working out at the gym, you're missing out on family time because you're passed out on the couch, that's not good. And oftentimes there's about 3 things that I think about when I first am working with patients. The first thing is what is going on with the glands. So the thyroid gland and the adrenal gland. Are they slowing down? Is it that you've been stressed for a long time? Is it that you've pushed yourself for a long time? So burning the candle at both ends, you take care of the family, you do your job during the day, and then at night you're maybe working a second job, or maybe you're just running around trying to catch up with all the different errands or things of that nature. And you've done it for so long now that your body's just telling you, hey, I need a reset, I need a break. That goes along the lines of your adrenal glands, because those are your fight or flight glands. The other thing is how much trauma have you had in your life? And this concept of how much trauma in life is really starting to become more and more apparent with patients as I move along in my practice. If your childhood wasn't really great, you were stressed, maybe you were bouncing from home to home, between mom's house, between dad's house, maybe you lived with grandma, that's trauma. Or maybe you had a childhood illness. That's trauma as well. It kind of poses itself in many different aspects. And so thinking about your life as a whole and what's led you up to this point of being fatigued, I see that the adrenals oftentimes are what are pushed. How many challenges have you had in life? How many obstacles? Have you been homeless? Things of that nature. So keeping in mind that the adrenal glands they're kind of like your little batteries. They keep you going. In Chinese medicine, the kidneys are considered our batteries, and the adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys. So these little guys have a lot to do with your energy levels and how well you fare. And it all boils down to, are you taking breaks during the day? Are you relaxing? Are you doing things that are fun for you? Because our adrenal glands need that sense of security. They need that sense of, okay, everything's okay. I don't need to be on hyper alert. So one of the big things is really managing stress well. And I will talk about that a lot in my future podcasts. My previous podcasts, I have some mentions about fatigue as well, in addition to how to manage stress. So check those out. The other big issue with fatigue is something called mitochondrial fatigue. This is what tends to happen to us as we get older and why we tend to slow down with age. We have little factories in every single one of our cells. They're called mitochondria. What they do is they take in your carbohydrates, so they'll take in the fruit molecules, they'll take in the molecules from beans, say if you ate those, the molecules from veggies. They'll also take in the molecules from broken down animal products, so chicken or fish, and they also take down and take in the oils, so olive oil, avocado oil, butter, and they take these good fats, proteins, and the carbohydrates, and they put them into the little factory in the cell, and they make energy for you. As we get older, our little factories in every single one of our cells start to get tired. And the reason they get tired is because we put in a lot of chemicals into our body, whether we know it or not. Our food system's broken. There's a lot of toxic items in processed foods and fast foods, but also in our environment and things we can't control. So as we age, our little factories in our cells do tend to malfunction, much like an older car. Same kind of concept here. So keeping your mitochondria healthy is key to keeping your energy levels up. Now, there is a lot of talk out there on the internet. Dave Asprey in particular, the bulletproof guy, he talks a lot about mitochondria. And great resource to check out for learning more about mitochondrial fatigue. And I will talk about it more in great detail in future podcasts. Okay, so we've talked about adrenals, so those glands. The thyroid also is another gland that could slow down with time because it is very susceptible to gluten. The molecules of the thyroid the thyroid hormone molecules look much like gluten molecules. And so if we eat excessive amounts of gluten, it slows down our thyroid. Also, our thyroid is extremely susceptible to toxic environments. And in particular, if we are working with a lot of chemicals or we're consuming a lot of chemical-laden food, that is going to cause our thyroid to slow down. So one of the big reasons why going pesticide-free in terms of your foods and getting things that are organic, but also trying to minimize the amount of toxins in your home and using non-toxic cleansers. The other main thing here in terms of fatigue is looking at, is your body fighting chronic viral or bacterial or fungal infections? We are exposed to a lot of different bugs every single day. Depending on where you live, you might have different types of bugs living in your gut, living on your tissue right now. In particular, I live in the Pacific Northwest where it's quite damp. And I grew up north of Chicago where it's also quite damp and humid. A lot of folks living in more damp, humid areas tend to have fungal infections more readily in their nose, in their sinuses, in their digestive system. And so those are one of the big things to think about with fatigue, because if our body's fighting, say, something called yeast, candida is another term for it. If the body's fighting that, that's going to take a lot of the body's energy to fight that fungal infection. Another concept to think about is, do you have chronic sinus infections? If you have those, you might consider that it's possibly a fungus, not a bacteria causing those issues. Okay, I could go into way more depth. We're going to jump over to the possibility of having viruses chronically hanging out in your system. The monovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, it has been found to reignite itself. And what happens is that just like, say, when you were a late teenager or early 20s, when it's common to get mono, it stays dormant in your system until you push yourself to the limits and wear your immune system down to the point at which your body can't keep that viral infection at bay. So then you end up feeling extremely fatigued, swollen lymph nodes in the neck, and just really down and out. So that's one aspect of the body being fatigued, because it's dealing with these viruses, and other viruses would be the herpes virus family, because there are a ton of different herpes viruses out there. We always think about the one that causes the cold sores and the one that causes the lesions below the belt, but yes, you could be dealing with those, but your body could also be working and fighting off the same virus that we get to cause chickenpox, and in adults it's called shingles. A lot of people are chronically fighting those types of viruses too. So we've got this concept of having bugs in our system, bacterial infections in the gut, very, very common. Something called small intestine bowel overgrowth is a big issue that will cause fatigue. So sleuthing out your cause of fatigue is huge to figure out how you're going to get your energy back. So number one myth, fatigue's not normal. It is a sign that something's up. You should have plenty of energy as you get older. And yeah, as you get older, your mitochondria are going to start to slow down, and that's because of exposures to chemicals and all kinds of other things in your environment. And if you can work to keep your mitochondria healthy, you can maintain your youth. Okay, so second myth here. This is that you're not getting enough sleep. This is not necessarily true. I know a lot of people who are fatigued who are getting 8 to 12 hours of sleep, and that's not the case. So if you are having trouble sleeping, one of the big things to do is to look at the routine, because setting a routine for when you go to bed and wake up is absolutely key to keeping your body healthy. Too much screen time, so being on the computer, that's a lot of sensory overload. Being on the cell phone, the computer, the tablet, all right up to the moment you try to go to sleep. That's way too much for our cave people brains. Another big issue is blood sugar. A lot of us will get a sweet tooth at night and we'll eat a sweet treat, like say ice cream with a little bit of chocolate chips in it or something of that nature. That's going to put our blood sugar up, and then we're going to get a crash in the blood sugar overnight. And oftentimes that'll wake us up too early, and in particular, kind of that 1 to 3 a.m. business. Another biggie with not being able to sleep is mineral deficiency. Sometimes we're missing out a lot on our selenium, which is useful for converting T4 to T3 in the thyroid, or we're missing out on magnesium. In fact, magnesium is the most commonly deficient mineral in all of the mineral categories, and it's key for relaxing muscles, helping us to relax, and also key for a lot of chemical processes that happen in the body for us to make energy. So big deal there if you're considering that perhaps maybe you're missing out on some of your minerals. A way to know if you're missing out on some of the minerals is if you have puffiness or darkness underneath your eyes. Oftentimes that can be a cause of lacking minerals, lacking a little iodine, lacking a little bit of magnesium, manganese, those different minerals. Now, another thing to keep in mind too about if you have puffy eyes, and going back to the comment I made at the beginning of the podcast saying, you look like crap. Well, when someone tells you look like crap, oftentimes your eyes are puffy, something of that nature is happening. Well, puffy eyes can be a lot of different things. It could be a food allergy, so a chronic food allergy. It could be a sign of a digestive deficiency. It could also be a sign that you've got some toxins building up and your body doesn't know what to do with them, so it's starting to swell a little bit. That leads us right into our third myth about fatigue. A lot of times I'll hear people say, well, you're tired because you're not eating enough. Well, it might be that you're not eating enough. It might be that you're not eating enough protein to keep your blood sugar balanced. But it could also be that you're not digesting your food. This is a huge issue with Americans in particular. We are too busy to chew, so we are putting big chunks of food in, and then those big chunks of food have to get broken down, and our digestive system gets tired doing that. And if your body is struggling to break down your food, you're going to be tired. So one of the big things here is considering, are you lacking digestive enzymes? Do you need beneficial bacteria known as probiotics to help you to absorb your vitamins? Because that's one of their big jobs. Do you have too many gut bugs? So going back to that concept of, do you have a ton of non-beneficial bacteria growing in your gut preventing you from having a healthy immune system? And so you're fatigued because your body's trying to deal with all those gut bugs. Or do you have a concept called leaky gut? Leaky gut is where the cells of the digestive system lining separate apart and molecules are getting across into the bloodstream. Normally, our food molecules shouldn't be in our bloodstream. And if they are, our body's got to figure out what to do with these little molecules. And it's going to wage an attack on them. And that's going to take some energy from the body too. One of the best folks to look up online for determining gut issues is Dr. Axe, Dr. Josh Axe. It's draxe.com. He's great at explaining these sorts of things, and I encourage you to go check him out. I will also be explaining some gut issues as we go on because I love to talk about the gut and the digestive system as well. But keeping in mind that sometimes fatigue could be because you're not breaking down foods properly and you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need. Another myth is the fatigue is because you're getting old. Now, I've already alluded to this a little bit, but it really means that you're not managing your stress well. You're not taking in proper food. You're letting toxins get into your body and reap havoc. Those are big issues. In particular, the not managing stress well pretty much will kill us faster than anything else. And it's because of cortisol levels. So cortisol is our hormone that wakes us up and puts us to sleep, but it also gets pumped out of the system when we are stressed. If you find that you're encountering certain stressors every single day that really set you off, you feel jittery, you get upset, you get confused, you can't think straight, these type of things, you have anxiety, these type of things are signs of high cortisol or spiking cortisol at least. And that can be a really big issue. And spikes and drops in cortisol, these drastic ups and downs can cause us to become quite fatigued and wear our body out as well. In my introductory episode of this podcast, I talk all about taking time to relax, having fun, honoring your 5-year-old self and smiling every single day. That is huge because that can help you to manage your stress better. The other side of the fatigue here is if you are low in cortisol. So say you've had a lot of trauma in your life, you've had some serious illnesses, maybe you've just had a hard time in life with dealing with relationships and things of that nature. All of those things compound and can really stress your adrenal glands to the point that they might not be making hormones sufficiently. And so this is something called adrenal fatigue, and that can also be a reason for fatigue, as I had mentioned in the first myth. Okay, myth number 5, you're depressed. Has anyone heard that? You're tired, and you're tired because you're depressed. Well, it could be a possibility here. However, it's not necessarily that you're depressed in a sense that there's no reason. Oftentimes when someone's depressed, it's because their neurotransmitters, their neurochemicals, dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, GABA, those guys are deficient. And some people have lived their whole life with deficient neurotransmitters. So these are the folks that they've been fatigued their whole life, they've been depressed most of their life, and they have no idea why. And oftentimes it's because they're not producing enough neurotransmitters. And usually it's because of a mutation called MTHFR. Sounds like a dirty word, it's not, but this mutation doesn't allow you to process synthetic folic acid. synthetic folic acid is in every single processed grain, cracker, bread, cereal, even in our milk. Anything that comes in a package that's sold at a grocery store, you can almost guarantee it's got synthetic folic acid in it. And the reason being is it's there to prevent spina bifida in children. This is where holes develop in the spine and can cause paralysis. And so the government decided to fortify everything with folic acid. So some folks can't process that synthetic folic acid, and we need folate, the natural form of folic. So folic acid is synthetic, folate is natural. We use folate to make new cells. We use folate to help us in the process of recycling vitamin B12 in the body, and we use vitamin B12 and other B vitamins to help us to make our neurochemicals. So it's kind of a roundabout explanation here, but sometimes there's a lot of folks who are fatigued because of that. Now, epinephrine and norepinephrine can be extremely high in folks who are chronically stressed. If the body's pushing to make epinephrine and norepinephrine, most of the time it skips over having sufficient amounts of serotonin to keep you happy. So that's why if you're stressed, oftentimes you're fatigued because your body's basically stealing the serotonin precursors and driving it right to make epinephrine and norepinephrine so you can fight off bears. Not necessarily what we need this day and age, but that's what our caveman brain does. So technically, I wouldn't say that if you are depressed that it's because of fatigue or vice versa, you're fatigued, so then you're going to be depressed. Sometimes it's independent of each other and there's a reason for it. So keep that in mind. The last myth I want to talk about is that you're tired because you are bored. That is never usually the case. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm bored, so I'm going to start yawning and things of that nature. Well, it's more that your brain's not stimulated. And a lot of the cases go back in this one, back to the neurotransmitters and needing to have good fats in your diet. So where I want to go to with this particular myth is that sometimes your fatigue has to do with your diet, not that you're bored. A lot of people will rely heavily on carbohydrate breakfasts. So cereal, bagel, your traditional kind of scone, donuts, the American stuff, what we do, granola bars. Well, guess what? That's carbohydrate. And it's going to spike your blood sugar. And if you're stressed headed out the door, it's going to spike that cortisol. Everything's going to go up and then it's going to drop really fast. And so if you're stressed, and you eat carbohydrates on top of being stressed in the morning, you're going to take your blood sugar for a ride really high, and then you're going to have a crash. And so I'm speaking to the folks who have that mid-morning crash. This is you. That is what's happening there. And you need some good fat and protein to help to keep your energy levels up. And so for a lot of folks who are struggling with being, quote, bored or yawning a lot during the day, it's not necessarily that you're bored. It's more that you need to balance your blood sugar a little bit better. So ways to do that would be waking up and having at least 20 grams to 30 grams of protein for breakfast, having some good fat with breakfast, so a little avocado, a little bit of olive oil, some olives, something of that nature. Then snacking, having a little snack, could be a piece of fruit with a couple of walnuts, something of that nature. And then moving on to lunch. So midway between the day where you normally crash, take a break and get a snack. Same thing if you crash in the afternoon, taking a break and getting a snack. We all need to rest a little bit during the day. It's okay to do that. It's not going to make you less productive. And really, we need to get over that concept of, oh, these people who take breaks, they're not working hard enough. I need to keep going and pushing and pushing. Guess what? I tried that for years, and I only found that I became more tired not taking breaks, and I couldn't concentrate, and my work was crap. I had poor quality work. I do a much better job when I take breaks, I fuel myself up a little bit, and keep going throughout the day. I mean, think of it this way. If you're going to drive across the country, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to fuel up your car. Well, if you're going to take every single day, much like it is a drive to, from New York City to Atlanta, Well, guess what? You need to fuel yourself up for that trip. So take every single day like it's a road trip and fuel yourself up good and keep topping off that tank throughout the day. That'll help you to keep you energized. It'll keep your fatigue at bay. So imagine this. Anyone out there have fatigue after lunch? So you eat your lunch, and then within the half hour to hour, maybe 2 hours after that lunch, you are ready to take a nap under your desk. Or you're out hunting to see who's got the best candy dish in the office. Anybody out there sound familiar? Yeah, that is a blood sugar crash. And usually what happens, if we have the traditional American breakfast, we have like donuts or a bagel first, and then after that, we get our coffee, and then we don't eat until lunch, and we're like, oh, lunch, I'm going to have my salad and my chicken. I packed it. It's all going to be good and healthy. Well, your little pancreas thinks that you're going to have what you had for breakfast, and so it's going to overshoot the amount of insulin needed to combat that salad with chicken. It's thinking you're having the bagel again. And so you put out a whole bunch of insulin, and there's not as much glucose released into the system because chicken and salad is low carbohydrate. So you get a crash after lunch. So that's one concept. The other concept is that your cortisol levels are going to naturally drop throughout the day from 10 o'clock on till when you go to bed. And perhaps you might have a steep drop there. Or you might be eating something sweet, say with lunch, and that like a cookie or something, and that's going to spike your blood sugar a little bit, and then it's going to drop it drastically, and it's going to go on a downhill ride with your cortisol. And so blood sugar and cortisol go hand in hand. Making sure that you're topping off your tank throughout the day, eating something every 3 to 4 hours. It does not have to be a buffet. It doesn't even have to be a meal. Popping like 3 walnuts in your mouth, 3 almonds, and maybe some apple slices or something, or some cucumber. Something simple. Just top the tank off. That's going to help you a lot to prevent fatigue. Now, the other big issue that is not necessarily a myth, I'm just going to talk about it here at the end, is that a lot of us have exposure to chemicals that we don't even know. It's just habits, things that we do. In particular, if you drink coffee and you get your to-go cup every day, that plastic on the top of that coffee cup is going to heat up when you go to drink a hot substance through that little tiny hole in there. And heating up plastic releases something called xenoestrogens. These are fake estrogens or chemical estrogens, and they can cause a host of problems in the body. And in particular, they bog down the system and they bog down your liver. So keeping in mind all the different exposures in which you're heating up plastic. Think about microwaving. A lot of us have Tupperware containers, and we literally pop them right in the microwave and heat up our lunch. Or lean cuisines, that's heated plastic. Same thing with leftovers. We make a meal and we plop that hot leftover right into a plastic container. Stop doing that. Go get some glass, or use glass jars. I love using spaghetti jars and pickle jars as my, quote, glass Tupperware. My dad calls it hippie Tupperware, whatever. It works for me, and I'm not getting all of the chemical exposures from the plastics because that can bog you down. The amount of alcohol you drink, also another big thing to bog down that system, because the more that our liver has to deal with, the more fatigued that we can become. So keeping in mind all of the different exposures that you have in life. Do you work in a paint store? Do you work in construction? Think about all the different exposures. And if you do have these things going on, one of the ways to work on your energy levels is to clean out the liver regularly. The cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, carrot, and beet, guys, those are awesome veggies to help to clear out your liver on a daily basis. 2 cups of those guys, and that's going to help you out. You could drink dandelion tea. You could also take milk thistle. Milk thistle is great for helping to clean out that liver, but also work on lowering liver enzymes. Okay, so I talked about the 6 main myths. By no means have I covered all of it. There's a ton more, but at least gives you a good concept of all of the different aspects out there that could be causing fatigue and why you shouldn't ignore it. Because if you're tired now, chances are you're going to be more tired each year that goes by. And if you don't do anything about it, your cells are going to become more and more toxic. Your mitochondria are going to become more fatigued, and your adrenal glands are going to become more and more fatigued if you do not deal with your stress. If you don't get rid of toxins in the body and toxic exposures, your thyroid's going to start to decline in terms of function, and your digestive system lining is going to have some issues. So, all right. That's a lot of doom and gloom, and I do not want to be turning this podcast into a ton of doom and gloom. So let's move on to what the heck do we do about this? One of the big things I just mentioned is just detox your cells daily. Get in the cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, beets, carrots daily. Get in some dark leafy greens, some spinach, some collard greens, beet greens. Those guys are delicious stuff, and it helps to detoxify your body, and it balances your pH, so it takes you from being acidic and making you more basic. Ginger and turmeric, awesome guys to help to detoxify your body naturally. In Asia, ginger is your number one detoxifier. It is like it's on everything, it's in everything, and there's a reason for it. So use it. Green tea is also detoxifying to the body. I don't tell folks to go too crazy on it because it does have some caffeine in it. So I wouldn't go much over a cup to 2 cups a day. Sugar. Now that's a biggie. Sugar causes all kinds of problems. Now, if any of you out there are really addicted to sugar, but you want to look good, you don't want to have wrinkles, you don't want to look like you're aging, you don't want to look like you're tired, sugar is the number one thing that causes trouble. What it does is it produces something called N-glycolation units in the body. And what these do is they gunk up your cells. They make them more brittle. They cause your cells to not be able to regenerate. It also causes just gunk to build up in the system. And it makes you have more wrinkles. It makes you look tired. It prevents you from being able to create new cells and get cellular turnover to happen at a proper rate. So something you want to keep in mind in terms of the sugars. All right. So puffiness. What do we do about puffiness under those eyes? Parsley, celery, cucumbers, cranberries. These guys are all natural diuretics. Watching the amount of salt that you intake in a day can be huge to help you with that puffiness. Also, the darkness with the puffiness, keep in mind minerals. I like a product called LDA Minerals by Claire Labs. It has a great basic amount of minerals. You take one of them a day, and it's going to help you to get back in all those minerals depleted by exposure to toxins day in, day out. Our minerals are used for that. They're also used to create our neurochemicals. So having minerals in the system helps to get your neurochemicals to be produced at sufficient levels so you feel happy, you feel satisfied with life. You're not depressed. Another biggie is setting routines. In my introductory episode of The Health Fix, I talk all about my routine planner and guide, and it's on a resource page on my website, drjkrauseND.com. You can go over there, you can click on the tab with the resources, and they're right there. You can download them all to help you to get yourself organized and your days planned out so that you're not stressing yourself out by having a chaotic schedule. But also you're scheduling in breaks and you're scheduling in fun. I have a great exercise that I did mention in my first episode about making every day your best day ever. And that's there on that resource page. So check that out. Another biggie I already mentioned is optimizing digestion. If you don't chew your food, you don't pay attention to what you eat, you drink a ton of liquids with your food, you're gulping, say, ice water with your food, you're going to have a digestive nightmare. You really want to focus on eating well, eating good, closest to nature foods, chewing them at least 25 times per bite, and not drinking a ton of ice water. Sip on drinks with your meals. Take digestive enzymes if you feel like your food is just sitting in your stomach and not moving along. Consider probiotics. I honestly think everybody should have probiotics, the beneficial bacteria, because they also are involved in signaling to your brain that you're happy. There's more serotonin in your digestive system than there is in your brain. Kid you not, 95% in the gut. So your gut's really your first brain. Your real brain is your second brain. So keep that in mind. crazy stuff. But your probiotics are also in charge of helping you to absorb B vitamins in addition to absorbing vitamins A, D, E, and K. So beneficial bacteria are key. I usually have folks start with about 5 billion organisms and ramp up from there. You can balance your pH to help with digestion, and that goes back to the dark leafy greens. And those guys also detoxify your cells on a daily basis, so that's a 2-for-1 right there. The other biggie is putting your cortisol and blood sugar in check. Fuel up for every single day. Get that protein and good fat in the morning. Eat every 3 to 4 hours. Get a little snacks in. You do not have to have a buffet every time you eat. It's just topping off the tank, and making sure that if you're going to eat a piece of fruit, you also have either a good fat with it or some protein. Don't eat carbohydrates on their own. Pair them with things so that doesn't take your blood sugar for a ride. The next big thing is whole food nutrition. A lot of diets talk about carbohydrates being the devil and grains being the devil. And in some cases, I could totally see that. But to keep your energy levels up, you need your B vitamins, and they are in whole grains. I just have people looking at whole grains differently and not thinking breads and crackers and all of those things. Thinking quinoa, thinking millet, thinking amaranth, thinking different types of grains, buckwheat in particular. Buckwheat, by the way, is not in the wheat family. It's a completely different family, but just happens to have the name wheat. So going gluten-free in terms of your grains, you're going to get a ton of B vitamins. Rice, wild rice, some of the red rices, the sticky rices out there have a lot of B vitamins in them and some iron. All of those things are great for keeping your energy levels up. Vitamin C rich foods are key too. They help you with your neurotransmitters. And so kiwi, citrus fruits, all those things. Dark leafy greens, also rich in vitamin C. Good fats, like I had mentioned before, are key for keeping your neurotransmitter levels up. Olive oil, raw nuts and seeds, olives, virgin unrefined coconut milk, unsweetened shredded coconut, making a little trail mix with some raw nuts or seeds and unsweetened coconuts. Amazing. L-theanine. This is an amino acid that's actually from green tea. It's an extract of green tea. This guy is the #1 neurochemical stabilizer. If the neurochemicals are too high, such in the case of epinephrine and norepinephrine, your fight or flight hormones, those guys are out of control. It can put them in check. But also it helps to regulate low levels of serotonin and dopamine. And so for a lot of people, I consider a little L-theanine, 200 milligrams at a time. You can go up to 1,000, but just kind of considering taking that and seeing if that helps you if you're noticing that your moods aren't the best. Maybe you're irritable. Maybe you are depressed. Maybe you are anxious. The L-theanine can help in that case. And in particular, L-theanine is great for anxiety. It seems to take the edge off of things big time and can help chill out the body. All right, so this podcast was all about getting you thinking about fatigue and the different ways you become fatigued. Being chronically fatigued is not normal. It is a sign something is off in your body and you need to do something about it. Please don't ignore it. If you want to slow down the aging process, dealing with fatigue is key because it's a sign that your cells are slowly slowing down. Those little factories called the mitochondria inside your cell are not pumping out energy like they should. And that's a big issue because if you're not making energy like you should, you're not detoxifying like you should, and you're not keeping your cells healthy like you should. And so fatigue is a warning sign that you're starting to age. And when I start seeing folks who are 15 years old, chronically fatigued, this is an issue. That individual is aging way too fast. So by dealing with fatigue, you are also going to work on your outward appearance. The better your mitochondria are at producing energy, the better they are at fixing your cells and keeping levels of elastin and collagen up so that you're not getting the wrinkles and things of that nature. You're going to help to prevent those. So working on preventing or managing your fatigue by taking the information you learned today and working to detoxify your body, working to set routines, optimize your digestion, and putting your cortisol in check while balancing your brain chemicals will help you to ultimately get the energy levels you desire and keep you healthy and slow down that process of aging. So I highly recommend that you work on those. If you're looking for more information, I recommend checking out the Bulletproof guy, Dave Asprey, also another individual, Dr. Axe, on helping to optimize digestion. If you're wanting to know more about getting quality sleep, the sleep doctor, Dr. Michael Bruce, is an amazing guy. And Alan Christensen, he's a naturopath like me. He is talking all about the adrenals on his website, and he has a book and a diet plan, the Adrenal Reset Diet. It is absolutely great stuff to help you to get things in check. So, big deal here is that fatigue is not normal. It is a sign that you are aging way too fast, just not a good thing. You are not managing stress well. And fatigue really shouldn't be a part of aging. It should be a warning sign. So if nothing else sticks today, keep in mind that don't blame your fatigue on getting older. Blame your fatigue on your cells becoming more and more toxic and you needing to do something about it right now to prevent you from aging too fast. All right. I am Dr. Janine Krause. That was another episode of The Health Fix. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning into The Health Fix, the podcast all about taking control of your health, rebelling against aging, and having fun every day. A lot of patients ask me, do you think I'm aging too fast? So, I created an evaluation checklist for you to see for yourself. Plus, I created a resource guide to help you slow down the aging process right now. You can find it for free on my website, drjkrauseND.com. If you like this podcast, help get the word out to others by liking it and rating it. If you'd like more natural health tips and want to join our Facebook community where I interact daily, click on the Join Group button on our website at drjkrauseND.com.